Hi, Vienna Behnke
Yep.
from Nina.
Yes.
Temporarily.
Yes.
Moving again pretty soon.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in soccer, and was it here in Nina when you got started?
Yeah, so I've lived in Nina my whole childhood, grew up in the same house. So my dad did a study abroad in Germany before I was born, and got really excited with the whole soccer, thing and the bandwagons of Bayern Munich and stuff.
We were all happy he did.
Yes, yes, that set the precedent for my whole life, certainly, not his. And so when he came back and had kids, he put us into soccer because he just loved it. And so my brother is 2 years older than me, and he started first, and I had to wait. And so when he was 5 and I was 3, had my little soccer ball running around the sidelines, watching him play, and seeing how much fun he was having. And so, yeah, technically I was 3 when I was introduced to the game, but I had to wait till I was 5 to get on a real team called the Skyhawks. And yeah, then it was just like a small-sided, tiny little goals, tiny little children running around, and yeah, I just loved it. I couldn't wait to go to practice, couldn't wait for games. I wore my jersey to school like every other day, and just kind of fell in love with it right away.
Mm-hmm. So you fell in love with it, but did you have any visions of someday playing high school, college, professionally?
Yeah, not maybe when I was 5, because that was a little bit early to have some career aspirations, but I remember like a pivotal moment in my life. In 6th grade, we had to write down our career goals and what you wanted to be when you grew up. And I wrote down I wanted to be a professional soccer player. Wow. And I pinned it on my locker, and everyone else was like, I'm going to be a doctor, and they're like all these like established jobs, and I was like, no, I'm going to be a pro athlete. But yeah, that was like, I was 11 years old. That was the first time I had like actually written it down going, this is my career goal, now how can I make it happen?
Wow, that's fantastic. So from youth, playing with the Nutmeg, famous team back in those days. People still talk about it today. You went on to high school.
Yep. And
the coaching change was there from your dad, who had you for 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
And then going with, I think, Kelderman wasn't coaching that first year. Right?
No, it was Dan Goggin first,
Dan Goggin.
And then Harry came my junior year.
Okay.
Harry, but
and then your senior year,
we had Jeff Zarin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had 3 different coaches and
4 actually, because I also had Kova my sophomore year.
Oh.
So yeah, it was very different going from having my dad from 5 to 14 to then being on varsity all 4 years, but so the same team, but having 4 different coaches. Yeah. So it was, my dad and I think alike, we play the same style of the game, so it was a very smooth 9 years or how many years.
Same
and it
philosophy.
was sure, and the consistency of what position you're going to play, what the coach expects of you, kind of what practices are going to be like, and all that kind of stuff, to a complete unknown 3-4 different times. As like, my freshman year, I didn't know what to expect going into high school, but then I got used to Dan Goggin and understood how he was thinking and what he wanted of me, and then the whole wrench in the whatever you call it, the wrench in the plan or whatever. Going to Kova, completely different style change, and then going to Harry, completely different style, completely different practice structure and thoughts of the game and formations and what position you're going to play. So it was really hard to try to find the consistency with those different coaches, especially compared to having one coach my entire club career. So yeah, it was a little bit unconventional.
It was very educational, though. You picked up a lot of different ideas, and I'm sure it helped you the transition to go to college, where you expected to play for the same coach for 4 years.
Yeah, I was recruited at UW-Milwaukee by Mike Moynihan, a legendary coach in the area.
Legendary family.
Yeah, of course. And I asked him on my recruiting visit, I'm like, do you have any plans to leave? Like, are you gonna, move on to bigger, better things? No, like, this is where my family is established. The field is named after his mom or sister or both, I can't remember. So I asked him, I'm like, are you gonna leave? And he's like, no, I don't have any plans to leave. I'm like, great. So I signed the letter of intent, had a, successessful freshman year, loved playing for him. I learned so much in that year. From him and his assistant coach, David Nikolic. I mean, I'm in contact with them today when I have questions or want to, do something. So they're great coaches, learned so much. And then after the season, he's like, we're going to have a team meeting. And everyone's like, that's kind of weird. Like, why? And he goes, I'm going to leave and go to a different college. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You told me you were going to do this. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So adjusted again to a new coach, and it took a while for UW-Milwaukee to fill the position because it was so out of the blue that he left. And so it was like I had been a little bit prepared for it with going through 4 high school coaches, but it's still harder to go through more coaches. And then after my senior year, Milwaukee changed coaches again. So it was like, again, just this new cycle of new ideas, which is good. I mean, if you're stagnant and kind of stuck, it sure develops, but it's a little bit hard to ride out that inconsistency.
So then came the big changeover from high school, college to the professional leagues. So
yeah.
How did that happen?
So I had envisioned this lovely, like, smooth transition of you graduate college, you get drafted, and you sign whatever you play in the NWSL or in the Bundesliga, whatever. That didn't really happen with me. So because I was having this coaching switch in UW-Milwaukee, I kind of was left on my own because there wasn't really anybody to say, you know, hey, this is my player, I want her to go to the next level. So I kind of started, at least based on the connections that I just knew, like I went back to Mike and David from my freshman year, and I said, do you have any opportunities? And I kind of just went on, like, who I knew and where they had been, and it didn't really get me anywhere. So I did an open tryout with the Western New York Flash, which is now the same team as the North Carolina Courage. And got a call back there, or what call back, got to come back for the next day of tryouts, and it went really well, but they ultimately didn't select me. And so I went back and I was training with the UW-Milwaukee team for a little while just to stay in shape. And then that summer I tried to play in Houston with the Houston Aces, which is a pro team that's not in the NWSL, and they have like kind of a sketchy administration, so that didn't really work out. So I came back and was kind of, you know, just training on my own, going, you know, where do I go from here? I didn't have somebody in front of me blazing the trail. I didn't have a coach in my corner kind of advocating for me. So I went to the Red Stars open tryout, and I was playing with them for the summer of 2016. And I was like, okay, I'm not really advancing in their, you know, ranks or anything, not really vibing there. So I hired an agent, and I, you know, kind of finally said, what can you get me? You know, I really want to play pro. I'm working on my own, but it's not really getting me anywhere. I'm gonna, you know, take the leap of faith and see what he could do. So he got me some opportunities in Romania and Serbia. And part of me was like, yes, like I have to go. This is what I've wanted since I was 11. I've worked for it, you know, I want to go. And then I was like, do I want to live in Serbia? What's it like for women playing soccer in Serbia? I had no idea. And my parents were like, we don't really want you to live in Serbia. So I passed it up, and I said no, which was really, really hard to say, like, here's the opportunity you've always wanted, but it's not quite right. So I said no. And luckily, it worked out for the best, and January of 2017, my agent got me a job with Hauker, which is my current Icelandic club. This is my lovely jacket. Yep, it's called Hauker, which is the word for Hawks, so it's like Hawks FC.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and I said yes to that. Living in Iceland was like, you know, as smooth of a transition from American culture as you can be when you go to Europe, but it's still European soccer and the whole, you know, club vibe over there. And so I signed a contract with them, and I've been with them ever since.
And you're going back, and the season starts again in January?
So the season starts March. It goes March to October, but preseason is January and February. Okay. So the plan is to head back around January, February, depending on, you know, the paperwork and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the plan, is to go back again.
Now, through all these years, what is a favorite position that you play?
I always say it depends on my teammates, because I like to play winger, but I also like to play attacking mid, and a lot of the teams I've played with have shifted me between the two. And I always say, if I have good central midfielders, I like to play winger. And if I have good wingers, then I like to play central mid. Yeah. So it kind of depends. But all else equal, I think I would probably choose winger as my favorite position. But attacking center mid is a close second.
And you've played most of that.
Yeah, those are usually what I switch between, and I'm a lefty, so coaches a lot of times put me on the left, because they're like, oh, she's a lefty. But then I'm always like, Arjen Robben, Leo Messi, they're lefty, but they play as an inverted winger on the right. So I'm always like, I can play on the right if you want me to. And so I have switched a little bit. But I've also played a little bit of outside back, which apparently coaches think I can do, but I don't like it. So I don't advertise myself as a defender because I don't like it, but I can also play there.
But I've seen you play for the Nutmeg and for the high school, and I always was impressed with your leadership qualifications on the field.
Thank you.
You were shouting, always encouraging words, sentences to your teammate players. From talking to you now, I think it comes natural. I think you are a born leader, and that fits perfectly with the position that you play in. Any players in the United States that you've come across that now play professionally in the United States on the World Cup team?
Yeah, it's I don't want to say everybody knows everybody, but there's a lot of similar connections when you get into the pro ranks.
Yeah.
So I played college, and I played against Sarah Hagen. We call her Apple. So she went to Appleton North, hence the Apple nickname.
She ended up playing in Germany?
Yeah, so she went to Appleton North, and I played against her for 1 year in high school. And then we were teammates together for 1 year at UW Milwaukee. And then she went on and played with Bayern Munich, FC Kansas City, Orlando, I think Houston for a little bit in the NWSL. So she had a very successful professional career. She's now, I think she's still in Orlando doing some coaching and administrative stuff in soccer.
Was she on the national team too?
She has a couple caps under Tom Sermanni on the national team.
Oh, Mrs. Sermanni.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, she had a very successful career. I played against Rose Lavelle in college. She went to the Badgers.
Oh, wow.
So we had a tough time defending her, of course.
Yeah.
But it's good to see her succeeding now at the national
Very much
team
impressed
level.
with her.
Yeah,
Yes,
her skills are.
She's been hurt a lot, but
those hamstrings, they get you.
But my recollection from the Fox Valley is that you and Sarah are probably the only two women that have gone on and played professional soccer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on the topic, but yeah, I think it's hard to get a D1 to go from high school to D1, and it's even harder to go from D1 to pro. So there's.
And then being in Neenah Menashe, it's probably hard to get noticed by other coaches too.
Yeah, I always say, like, when people are asking me like how I did it or whatever, you have to advocate for yourself coming from Neenah, because at least when I was growing up, it was always FC Milwaukee. Okay, if you don't play for them, then we don't care. And then it's like, oh, if you don't play for UNC or Stanford, then we don't care. And so, you don't get the opportunities, you don't have the connections because you're coming from a smaller market. But that doesn't mean you're not just as good.
Right.
And it's actually frustrating to see really, really good players kind of slip through the scouting ranks in the U.S. because the U.S. is so big. I mean, it's kind of like, I see both sides. The scouts, you have to start somewhere, so you start with Stanford and UCLA or UNC, but then the people like me who are like in a smaller market, you're like, I can be just as good, you just don't know me yet. So it's a little bit of a flawed system, but you always just have to advocate for yourself.
That's right, exactly. You got to be proactive, much
Yes.
more than if you're in a larger community.
Of course.
You've been in Iceland for a few years now. You've seen youth soccer. You're involved in any youth soccer clubs?
Yeah, so their system is a little bit different. My club Hauker has a youth system where, like, in the U.S.
Typical European.
Yeah, very European. But a lot of people in the U.S. have no idea. So because, like, for my U.S. journey, I went from like rec soccer, then I changed to go to the Neenah Soccer Club, then you have to go to high school, then college, and they're all new clubs and like new teams. Where in Europe, you start when you're 6 and you join Hauker, and then you can play up until you're on their professional team. Or you can, you can move clubs and trade whatever if you want to go on loan or all this stuff, but it's like these little kids that I am, seeing at the games are looking up to me and the men's team going, I want to be you one day, as opposed to like, yeah, there's someone who plays for the LA Galaxy, but I will never be there, So I actually do a little bit of coaching on the side, just to, help out the club and in my spare time. So I was coaching, I forget how old they were, 11 and 12-year-old girls, and then some younger boys and some older girls. And so I get a little bit of the coaching side of it, and it's interesting to see the kids and how they think of where they want to go in the future, as opposed to, okay, I'll play until high school and then I'll be done, or I'll play through college and then I'll be done. There is like the look beyond that to say, yeah, I can play until I don't want to play anymore, and you can. There's always a team ahead of you until you get to the Meesterfucker, they call it, which is the professional team, the adult team.
Yeah, definitely different, and they try to have that system here too. And some teams do, like the Bavarians in
Sure,
Milwaukee.
sure.
They have that feeding system with tryout and everything. So what's next for Vienna in soccer? You can do this for a while, yeah, but what
I
about
hope.
after that? Yeah.
Yeah, so like right now it's the off season, and then hopefully I'll go, back to Iceland and play their season again there. Usually, at least for the women professionals, you sign a 1, maybe 2-year contract, just because you never know what the club situation is, what the player situation is, where a lot of the men you'll see sign 5-year, 7-year deals, because it's a little bit more stable. So I usually am just signing a 1-year contract, and then I regroup, and then go, yep, I want to play again, I'll sign again. So ideally, I'll play until I can't anymore, which will probably be determined more by my body than my brain.
Yes.
So you can't do it forever. But I would love to play as long as I can and just continue to improve and enjoy it.
And after you don't play anymore, you still want to be involved in the game.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just walk away and
Right.
never do anything again. My dad always says I should coach, which I don't think I will do. I don't see myself being a coach, but I could if I wanted to.
Yeah,
But
it all depends what opportunities come
sure,
along. Too.
sure, and where I end up settling down. But I also have school on my mind, so I have my master's degree in behavioral analysis, which is a psychology field, and then I was studying for my PhD in behavioral neuroscience when I left to go to Iceland. So my ideal career goal would be to finish school and then have my own research lab, which is not related to soccer at all. So it's a little bit like, do I want to walk away completely, or do I want to keep my foot in the door a little bit? So we'll see.
Yeah, you have some decisions to make in the future yet.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of when you were in Iceland, or you are in Iceland, the level, the youth level of soccer. When you look at Nina, we got half a dozen, a dozen and a half, maybe fields all over
Yeah.
Nina. Iceland has had soccer for many more years than we've had in Nina. So
Yeah.
are there more kids involved in Iceland, you think, than there are here?
I would say percentage-wise, yes. Iceland only has 350,000 people.
Yeah.
So if you go by the sheer numbers, I'm sure there's more in the US. But percentage-wise of how many of the kids are playing soccer, I would say there's way more in Iceland than in the US. One, because they really only have soccer and handball and basketball a little bit. So if you're gonna do sports, it's one of those two or both. Where in the US you can play tennis, you can play football, you can play volleyball, all these other things. So a lot of the kids who are athletes play soccer and then are good at it. But yeah, they also have, you join the club, and then the club keeps you and facilitates your growth through the sport. Where here it's if you want to play, you can sign up, and if you don't, then we'll pick someone else.
Yeah.
Where there, they're you're going to be on the team next year and next year.
It's
so
like a family, like a social group.
Yeah, and Iceland in general is more like that, just because they're a smaller country. They have to work together, and so they're very much more familial and
Things happen
communal.
differently over there. Hey, great talking to you.
Yeah.
Good seeing you. Good
Thanks
luck
for having
next
me.
year in Iceland.
Thank you.
You're welcome.